I'm going to read an excerpt from an upcoming book that I'm working, a Maggie Gale Mystery that I'm working on. The earlier videos that are on my Facebook page showed sort of the beginning of me reading this at Rehoboth for the Women's Week when Golden Crown's literary authors read excerpts of their upcoming work. And I thought people might want to hear the whole story. So I'm going to read this now. My detective is Maggie Gale, and I've written 2 books. Both of them have been finalists in the Golden Crown Literary Society awards for mystery thriller. And this is a mystery romance. These are both mystery romances, Angel Food and Devil Dogs and Being the Steel Drummer, the first 2 books. Being the Steel Drummer is still in the competition. They haven't chosen the winners yet, so we can always hope. In this story, this is about Catherine, who has described her mother. This is about Maggie meeting Catherine's mother, and Catherine has described her mother as a cross between Mrs. Gale in the Now Voyager movie with Bette Davis and a shrew. And Maggie says, "You mean like the Shakespearean harpy kind, or the rodent with the razor-sharp claws?" And Catherine says, "Well, both." So in this story, Detective Maggie Gale and her new inamorata, college professor Catherine Anthony, are away on their first trip together. As the story unfolds, Maggie is making waffles for breakfast as she realizes that Catherine has received an irritating email from her mother. The email says, "Dear Catherine, I know family means little to you. However, I'm facing a life-threatening situation. My plea to the police has fallen on deaf ears. As my executor, I thought it was best to alert you. If you do not hear from me again, now you'll know why. Best wishes, your mother." She signed it Best Wishes, I said incredulously. Does she always write like this? It sounds serious. I think we should call her. "Maggie, a phone call to my mother is a call to Pandora's Open Box Boutique." You would really call her? "Sure, if you want me to. Where are you going?" I asked as Catherine stood up. "To get some dark chocolate chips to mix into these waffles. Drastic times call for drastic measures." "Really, Carita, she's not my mother. She doesn't know which of my buttons to push. What's her first name? Is her last name Anthony? Does she go by Mrs. or Ms.? My mother's a heat-seeking missile. She'll find your buttons. It's Helen Anthony, Mrs. 912. Is that a Maine area code or New York?" I asked as I entered the number. "No, it's Georgia," said Catherine, sitting back down at the table next to me. "Georgia? Is it close by?" I asked. "Of course not. It's in Wayfield, Georgia. We're in Florida." "Obviously, you didn't have one of those plastic United States maps as a kid. Georgia borders Florida, and Wakefield's just 30 miles from here," I said, smirking. A brief look of shock flashed on Catherine's face as a phone voice tinged in Georgia peach blared, "Yes," loud enough that Catherine could hear it clearly. "Mrs. Anthony, this is Maggie Gale. Your daughter Catherine showed me an email about your recent problem. I'm in law enforcement, and she felt that if we spoke, I might be able to help you." "You're a woman police officer?" "I'm a detective now. As a police lieutenant in Pennsylvania, I was there for many years." "You lost your job on the police force?" she asked sharply. Catherine was listening with wide-eyed car accident attention. I winked at her as I said into the phone, "No, I retired early with commendations." "I don't know you, Miss Gale." "But your daughter does. You wrote to her for help, and she's asked me to help you because I'm a professional." There was no response on the line until I added, "There's no charge." Mrs. Helen Anthony's voice dropped to a dramatic whisper that Catherine was unable to hear. She said, "It's quite serious. You see, I took my emerald to the jewelry store, and I believe they substituted another of lesser, well, quality. My emerald is quite different now. Quite." Then she said in a loud, clear voice that made me wince and Catherine's head snap up, "I see by the area code that you're in the next county. Do come here and I'll explain the rest to you in person. You can see for yourself. I'll expect you at 3 p.m. Catherine's head started moving back and forth like a shake weight. I put my hand over the receiver and said to Catherine, "Relax, she's your mother. I'll have to meet her someday. We'll just run over there, give her some advice or something. What's the worst that could happen? Pestilence, plague, disaster." Face it, Catherine. You'll be worried until this problem is settled. We can go together and deal with it. Catherine's gaze drifted to the floor as she considered the situation. Then she looked back into my eyes and said softly, "Maggie, no one else would have ever done this for me. Okay, we'll go together." I told Helen Anthony we'd see her at 3. Part 2. What prize does the victor get for solving your mother's mystery? I said. The bright afternoon sun glinted off oncoming truck windshields as we crossed the Georgia border on I-95. The victor? You're that sure of yourself? Catherine asked incredulously. As a fallback, I'll just change my name to Victor. Catherine turned toward me, propping her head on her fist. I'm not going to spend this whole ride telling you all the mind-numbingly terrible things she did to me as a child, or how she's obsessed with her dog, or the way she's honed passive aggression to an art form, because it would taint your perspective. Did she actually tell you what was wrong? I couldn't hear that part. Apparently your mother thinks a store substituted an inferior stone in a piece of her jewelry. I reached for Catherine's hand. You know, she's estranged from her 3 children and lives by herself with her dog. Don't you think that someday you'll have to just let go and see her as a sad, lonely person to be pitied? Catherine grunted, then said softly, "Yes, I suppose." "What kind of dog?" I asked. "A Scottie, very cute, but frantic. I've always thought the dog's hysteria was from having to live with my mother." You have a stressful relationship with your mother. Isn't that true for about 50% of the women in the United States? And by the way, I can take care of myself. I know karate. Really, how bad could she be? She gave birth to you, and look how spectacular you turned out to be. I'm still holding out for a late revelation that gypsies left me on the doorstep. And by the way, karate will be no defense. Did you bring a handgun? Of course I didn't bring a handgun. Did I tell you she's a member of Focus on the Family? Catherine sighed. I have a stun gun in the trunk, I said dryly. Conversation was cut short because the GPS stopped making sense and Catherine had to read the map. We followed dirt roads for miles and then finally pulled onto a paved development. It was cloned with gray McMansions. Beyond them were hundreds of square miles of the Okefenokee Swamp. This was apparently the nowhere everyone is always 500 miles from. Which house is the Stepfords? I asked. Visiting here is absurdly complicated, said Catherine, pointing right to a cul-de-sac. You been here before? Catherine nodded. At Mother's suggestion, I flew to Atlanta and rented a car and drove the 5.5 hours from the airport. It's really not that far as the crow flies, but there are no direct roads. At least you had a car to escape in, I suggested as we pulled into the driveway of a large, formally landscaped house. You had that, right? Catherine opened the car door as she said, The morning after I got here, I noticed the rental car had vanished from the driveway. It turned out she'd called the agency and told them to pick it up because I didn't need it. We walked up the path. Catherine paused, then pressed the doorbell. Release the Kraken, I whispered. Catherine laughed and grasped my hand. We waited and nothing happened. I looked at my watch. It was 3 p.m. After a full minute passed, Catherine rang the doorbell again. Nobody came. I took out my phone and rang her mother's cell, but no one picked up. I left a message saying I was at the door. Minutes passed. Catherine peeked into the small windows above the brass door knocker, but they were covered with curtains. I saw her hands clench into fists as she frustratedly leaned her forehead against the door. "This is so like her," she said. "She must not be here. Normally, Emmy makes a maniacal scene. She always barks hysterically when the doorbell rings." "Emmy? Wait, the dog's name is Emmy?" My phone conversation with Catherine's mother replayed in my mind. That's not short for Emerald, is it?" I asked as Catherine reached for the bell for one last ring. Emerald. How did you know?" said Catherine. "Oh, crap," I said, a millisecond before the door swung open. My first gander at Helen Anthony sunk Catherine's dream of gypsy birth parents. Helen was obviously Catherine's mother. Her eyes, her nose, the angle of her jaw were all the same. But Helen's hair was white and highly coiffed, while Catherine's is auburn and falls gently to her shoulders. And while Catherine's eyes twinkle when she smiles, her mother's face bore traces of those women in the 1960s who were the first to deny undesirables like me and my family entrance into their country club. "Officer Gale?" Mrs. Anthony asked, then turned to the daughter she hadn't seen in 5 years and said, "And Catherine, you're here too." "Hello, Mother," said Catherine flatly. Helen Anthony literally looked me up and down as she realized that I was stooping her daughter, and that it was her job to make me feel sinful about it. She didn't succeed, though. I feel nothing but joy when it comes to Catherine's bedroom talents. As we entered the foyer, I said, "This problem you have, Mrs. Anthony, it concerns your dog, doesn't it?" "Mother," said Catherine incredulously, "it's about Emerald?" "Those strange men at the jewelry store, pet groomers," began Mrs. Anthony, her tone immediately lowering into an angry octave. I'd never seen Catherine show so much obvious emotion. She flushed red and said furiously, "Honestly? You said life-threatening." Catherine and her mother both exhaled virtual steam and glared at each other. Cue the Clint Eastwood music. I reflected that while Helen may be a drama queen, at the moment Catherine was top seed for reigning drama princess. I gave Catherine a raised eyebrow look, covertly, and a smile flitted over her features. Her shoulders dropped an inch as she calmed down. A glance at Helen told me her mood ring was still probably black. And that's the end of that excerpt. Thank you for listening.